The lawyer had already lied twice before he reached the sentence that made my uncle smile. Not a big smile, not the kind you could point at and say, "There, see that? That is guilt." It was smaller than that, meaner. One corner of his mouth lifted like a curtain in a dirty window, like he had paid for this part already and was just waiting for the receipt. I was sitting across from him in a gray cardigan that still smelled faintly like my mother's closet. Lavender sachets, old paper, and something cold and sweet underneath, like the back of a drawer nobody opened for years. My right thumb was pressed into the tiny crescent scar beside my knuckle, hard enough that it hurt. I do that when I know someone is lying. The office smelled like stale coffee, wet wool, and printer heat. The carpet had those flattened tracks from rolling chairs, and the table was too shiny, the kind of shine that makes everyone's hands look guilty. Outside, rain hit the window in thin silver lines. Inside, the lawyer read, "My mother's will," like he was reading a weather report. His voice was flat, soft, and practiced. "Your mother intended the property to be managed by the family trust," he said. The family trust. He paused after saying it, not for grief, but for effect. My uncle lowered his eyes like a man trying very hard to appear sad. He had not looked sad at the funeral. He had not looked sad when he stood in my mother's pantry and moved her tea tins around like he was rearranging furniture in a house he had already won. But now, in that office, with two witnesses sitting stiff-backed against the wall and my cousin staring at the carpet, like the carpet might open and swallow him whole, my uncle suddenly looked devastated. Convenient grief. Expensive grief. The lawyer turned the page. It was a cream folder, not blue. I noticed, and my uncle noticed me noticing. For 1 second, his face changed. Just one. There was a crack in him, a thin one. Shame, maybe, or fear pretending to be irritation. Then it closed, and he adjusted his cuff. That cuff. He kept touching it like there was a pulse inside. The lawyer kept reading, and my mother's name came out of his mouth wrong. Too smooth, too clean, like he had wiped her fingerprints off every word before bringing them into the room. I looked down at my lap. My phone was there, screen dark, already recording. But not just now. Earlier, from this same office. The lawyer's voice, my uncle's voice, the real plan, the real clause, and my mother's real words buried under cream paper and professional breath. I let him keep reading because lies are weak when they are whispered. They get stronger in silence. So I let him make his lie public. I let him give it witnesses. I let him build the whole ugly thing right there on the table, brick by brick, sentence by sentence. Then I waited for him to place the final brick on top. People think a house is walls. It is not. A house is one corner your mother always stood in. A sound you do not realize you need until it stops. Our house had a back pantry with cracked yellow tile. Not pretty cracked, not vintage, just old. One tile near the left wall had a dark vein through it, shaped almost like a river if you looked too long. My mother used to say it looked like lightning trapped underground. That pantry was narrow enough that 2 people could not stand in it without someone turning sideways. She loved it. Every Sunday morning, she stood there in her faded house slippers and made cardamom tea. Not because Sunday needed tea. Because she did. She kept the cardamom pods in an old tea tin with no label. She kept sewing needles in another tin. Coins in a biscuit box. Dead receipts folded into squares. Batteries that may or may not have worked. And one blue rubber band that had somehow survived longer than most marriages in our family. I used to tease her about it. You know you can throw things away, right? She would not even look at me. She would just tap the spoon twice on the rim of the cup. Tap, tap. Then she would say, "Everything looks useless until the day you need it." Her tea was too strong. Always. She boiled it past the point of reason, and the whole pantry would smell like cardamom and milk and old wood. Steam would stick to the small window. The spoon would leave little brown half-moons on the saucer. When she handed me my cup, she always touched the back of my wrist first. Quick. Barely anything. Like checking if I was still there. Like making sure I had not floated away from her. That was the thing I missed first. Not her advice. Not the big conversations people imagine after death. Not even her voice. It was her fingers on my wrist, warm, dry, and certain. After she died, the house became too clean. That sounds stupid. I know. But grief has smells. Real grief does. Dust, old blankets, cold sink water, flowers turning rotten in vases. Our house should have smelled like people had been crying in it. Instead, it smelled like lemon cleaner. My uncle had cleaned, or hired someone to clean. Same difference. The pantry tins were moved. The spoon was gone from its hook. The rubber band was missing. He had stood in that narrow pantry and decided which parts of my mother were trash. That was before the will, before the office, before I heard the recording. That was the first theft. Not legal, not documentable. But I felt it in my teeth. He had not touched the house yet. He had touched memory. And men like that always start small because they want to see who flinches. At the funeral reception, people chewed dry sandwiches, like chewing was a form of respect. No one knew what to do with their hands. They held paper plates, cups of tea, napkins folded and unfolded into sad little squares. The air smelled like raincoats and mayonnaise. Someone had brought flowers too bright for the room. Yellow lilies. My mother hated lilies. She said they smelled like old ladies trying to win arguments. I stood near the kitchen doorway with my thumb pressed into my scar, watching people touch our countertops like tourists. My uncle came up beside me. He had waited until there were people close enough to hear, but not close enough to help. That was his talent. He put his hand on my shoulder. Heavy. Damp. Too familiar. "Your mother worried you would not know what to do with a house," he said. Soft. Almost kind. The kind of voice people use when they want witnesses to admire their patience. I looked at his hand first, not his face. His wedding ring had left a pale dent when he took it off years ago. And I remember thinking, strange how even missing things can mark a person. "What do you mean?" I asked. He sighed, a performance sigh. Full chest, meant for the room. "I just mean, houses are responsibility, bills, repairs, taxes. You know how she was. She wanted things handled properly." Handled. That word slid across my skin. Behind him, my cousin looked down into his tea. The family elder, seated near the window, stopped chewing. My uncle squeezed my shoulder once. Too hard. Not enough for anyone to call it cruel. Enough for me. "She loved you," he said. "Nobody is saying she did not. Nobody is saying." That is how thieves begin. They tell you what no one is saying so they can hide what they are already doing. 20 minutes later, the lawyer arrived. Not for the reception. Not really. He came in wearing a black coat with rain on the shoulders and condolences already arranged on his face. "I am very sorry for your loss," he told me. He said my name without asking. Then he looked away too fast. Just a fraction too fast. As if eye contact might make him responsible for something. My uncle stepped toward him, and they shook hands like men who had already spoken that morning. Not long, not obvious, but comfortable. Too comfortable for grief. I watched their hands. The lawyer's thumb pressed once into my uncle's palm. A signal. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. My scar started hurting under my thumb. Something in me went still. Not angry. Anger is hot. Anger moves. This was colder. A little metal door closing somewhere inside my chest. I stopped speaking for the rest of the reception. People thought I was overwhelmed. Good. Let them. Grief is useful camouflage if you are willing to wear it ugly. The blue folder had been mentioned only once. Months before she died, my mother was standing in the pantry, trying to open a jar that had defeated both of us. The lid was stuck. She wrapped a towel around it, hit it with the side of a spoon, and cursed under her breath. Then she said, out of nowhere, "If anything happens, ask for the blue folder, not the cream one." I laughed because I thought she was being dramatic. She looked at me. Not dramatic. Flat. "The blue one," she said. "Do not let them give you the cream one." Then the lid popped open, and the whole kitchen smelled like cloves. I forgot about it. Of course I did. People forget warnings when the person giving them is still alive. A week after the funeral, I went to the lawyer's office to pick up documents. Not to investigate. I wish I could make myself sound sharper than I was. I was not sharp. I was sleeping in pieces, eating toast standing up, forgetting why I walked into rooms. Grief had started stealing hours from me, whole hours. I would look at the clock and realize I had been holding a cup of cold tea for 40 minutes. So I recorded voice notes. Little reminders. Buy batteries. Call utility company. Find pantry spoon. Ask for blue folder. That morning, my phone was in my coat pocket, recording because I had just whispered, "Ask about blue folder. Do not leave without blue folder." The receptionist told me to wait. She was young, nervous, and chewing the inside of her cheek while the printer jammed behind her. "Sorry," she said. "It does this all the time." The printer coughed. Not beeped. Coughed like an old man clearing phlegm. A conference room door down the hall was half open. I was not trying to listen. I was standing there with my coat still damp, smelling toner and burnt coffee, when I heard my uncle's voice. Low. I froze. There is a specific kind of stillness that enters the body when it hears danger in a familiar voice. Not fear yet, recognition. My uncle said, "You will read it cleanly?" The lawyer answered, "I will read the trust language first." My mouth went dry. I looked at the receptionist, still fighting the printer. A sheet came out, wrinkled and hot. The lawyer continued, "If she does not challenge it, we proceed." Then my uncle laughed. Not fully. Just air through his nose. She will not. She hates confrontation. I remember looking down at my hand, blue folder under my arm, my thumb in my scar, skin white around the nail. I remember thinking, my mother knew, not everything, maybe not the whole shape of it, but enough. Enough to say blue, not cream. Enough to leave a breadcrumb in the pantry beside cardamom and dead batteries and all the other. Useless things that become useful too late. The receptionist finally turned around. "Sorry about that," she said. "You needed?" I almost said nothing. That scares me more than anything now. For 1 weak second, I almost protected the room from discomfort. I almost became exactly who my uncle said I was. Instead, I swallowed. "The blue folder," I said. Her face changed. Tiny. But it changed. She looked toward the conference room, then back at me. "I will check," she said. She brought me a cream folder first. Of course she did. I did not touch it. My mother said blue. The receptionist held the cream folder closer to her chest. "Most estate documents are kept." My mother said blue. Quiet. Not strong. Just flat enough that she understood I would stand there until the walls rotted. She disappeared again. The printer clicked. Rain tapped at the glass door. Somewhere down the hall, my uncle said something I could not hear. When she came back, the folder was blue. Old blue. Soft at the corners. A coffee stain near the metal clasp. My mother's handwriting on the tab. House. Final. Not elegant, not legal-looking. Hers. I held it and felt the weight of it in my palms. Paper should not feel alive. But that did. I did not open it there. I walked to my car in the rain, locked the doors, and sat with the folder on my knees while my breath fogged the windshield. Then I took out my phone. The recording was still running. 43 minutes. I played the middle. Static. Printer cough. Receptionist murmuring. Then him. "I will read the trust language first." I stopped it so fast my finger slipped. My stomach made a sound. Not a sob. Not nausea. Something lower. Something animal. I sat there until the windows were completely white with fog. Then I laughed once. A small, terrible laugh. Because my uncle was right about one thing. I hated confrontation. He had built his whole plan on that. He just did not understand. Hate is not the same thing as inability. I went quiet after that. Not peaceful quiet. Not healing quiet. Ugly quiet. The kind where people keep asking if you are okay because they can feel something moving behind your face. I stopped answering calls unless I had to. When my uncle texted, I replied in clean little sentences. "Thank you. I will review. Please send by email." That last part mattered. Please send by email. Every time. He hated that. I could feel it through the screen. He wanted conversations. Soft ones. Foggy ones. The kind where later he could say, "That is not what I meant." Or, "You misunderstood." Or, "You are grieving." Email made him smaller. Email gave his words edges. I made copies of everything in the blue folder at a print shop that smelled like hot plastic and dust. The man behind the counter sneezed 6 times. I counted. 6. I watched every page go through the machine. Clause numbers, witness signatures, dates, amendment pages, my mother's initials where she had changed a word and pressed too hard with the pen. I bought a freezer bag from a corner store on the way home. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. A freezer bag with a blue zipper and a picture of strawberries on the box. At the house, I pulled up the loose floorboard in the pantry, the one near the cracked yellow tile. My mother used to hide holiday money there and pretend I did not know. I put the original documents inside the freezer bag and slid them into the dark. Then I put the board back and pressed it down with my heel. Tap. Not the spoon, but close enough to hurt. At night, I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow lamp on and learned how to read my mother's will. Not like a lawyer, like a daughter counting stab wounds. Clause numbers first, then dates, then signatures, then the difference between managed by and transferred to. Words I used to skip became teeth. A sentence could give a house away. A comma could invite a thief inside. I replayed the recording until I knew it by muscle memory. The printer cough. the chair squeak, the lawyer's breath before he said, "If she does not challenge it." My uncle's laugh. "She will not. She hates confrontation." I wrote timestamps on a notepad. 2:14, lawyer says. Trust language first. 2:29, uncle asks if reading will be clean. 3:03, uncle says. I hate confrontation. My handwriting got smaller each night, meaner. By the fourth night, the page looked like it had been written by someone assembling a trap in a basement. Good. I asked for all documents by email. I asked for clarification by email. I asked what folder would be used at the final reading. The lawyer responded late. Always late. Always with language that tried to sound bored. As previously discussed, the relevant estate materials will be reviewed at the scheduled reading. Previously discussed. With who? Not me. I printed that email too. Hole punched it, put it in a binder. The binder was black, cheap, and ugly. I loved it. I met a second attorney once, not because I wanted saving. I was done waiting for grown men in offices to interpret my mother back to me. I wanted a blade sharpened. The second attorney was tired. Gray hair, no performance grief. She read the clause, listened to the recording, and did not interrupt once. When it ended, she said, "Do not warn them." I looked at her. She tapped the page with one finger. Let them read it wrong in front of witnesses. My skin went cold. Then what? Then you stop the room. Stop the room. I carried that phrase home like a match cupped in my hands. I invited the witnesses carefully. The family elder first. She had known my mother before I was born. She wore black shoes even in summer and could shame a room without raising her voice. Then the neighbor, not a best friend, not someone who would lie for me, someone who had heard my mother tap that spoon for years through the kitchen window when both houses were open in warm weather, someone who knew the rhythm of our life. I did not tell them everything. Just enough. I need you physically present at the reading, I said. The elder asked, "Why?" My thumb went to my scar. "Because I think they are going to lie." Silence. Then she said, "Then I will wear my good coat." The neighbor did not ask why. She just said, "Your mother once brought me tea when my hands were shaking." And that was that. Small rooms make people sweat. Crowds let villains perform. I wanted 6 people, no more. Me. My uncle, the lawyer, the family elder, the neighbor, my cousin, because my uncle brought him everywhere when he needed someone soft to look at him with loyalty. 6 was enough. Enough ears, enough eyes, enough shame. The day of the will reading, the rain came down hard and dirty. Not beautiful. No thunder. No movie weather. Just gray water slapping cars and turning the parking lot into a sheet of dull metal. My shoes were wet before I reached the office. Door. The lawyer's receptionist would not meet my eyes. The waiting room had fake plants in square black pots. One leaf had dust thick enough to write on. There was a bowl of mints on the table, all green and white wrappers. No one touching them. My uncle arrived 3 minutes after me. Dry. Somehow dry. He had an umbrella folded under one arm, and that same cuff already adjusted perfectly. He looked at my cardigan. My mother's gray cardigan? His mouth tightened. "Is that not hers?" he asked. I looked down at the stretched sleeve. Yes. He waited for more. I gave him nothing. My cousin came in behind him, hair damp, collar crooked, eyes already apologizing for a crime he had not committed but would still sit beside. The family elder arrived in her good coat. dark wool, silver pin at the throat, shoes polished like judgment. The neighbor came last, carrying a brown handbag with both hands, like she was holding herself together by the straps. We went into the conference room. Same table, same stale coffee smell, low rain against glass. The lawyer had arranged the chairs. That bothered me. He placed my uncle at his right side, me across, witnesses near the wall, and my cousin at the far end. A little courtroom made out of office furniture. The lawyer sat down and stacked papers in front of him. Cream folder on top, not blue. My heart did not race. That surprised me. I had imagined shaking, sweating, maybe crying at the wrong time. But my body went very quiet, like it had been waiting weeks to become useful. I touched the scar beside my knuckle once. Then I put both hands in my lap. The lawyer cleared his throat. He had a gold pen. I remember that more clearly than his face. Gold pen. Ridiculous thing. Too shiny. He clicked it twice, even though he was not writing. Click. Click. My uncle leaned back. Comfortable. The padded softness was there again. That look people get when they believe they already own the ending. His face before exposure was almost peaceful. That is what I hate most. He looked relieved. Not guilty. Relieved. Like stealing from me had been a stressful task. And now, finally, the paperwork would make it clean. The elder watched him from under her eyebrows. The neighbor kept her handbag on her knees. My cousin stared at the carpet. Of course, the carpet. The lawyer began. Thank you all for coming. No one thanked him back. He glanced at me, then away. We are here to review the final estate intentions of your mother. Final estate intentions. Not wishes. Not will. Intentions. Language wearing gloves. He opened the cream folder. Paper whispered. Rain hit the glass. Somewhere outside, a car hissed through standing water. He read the first lines correctly. My mother's full name. The date. The basic declaration. My throat tightened at her name. Not because he said it tenderly. Because he did not. He made her sound like a file. Then he turned one page. My uncle's thumb brushed his cuff. There it was. The signal his body could not stop making. The lawyer said, regarding the residential property. He paused. Tiny pause. Rehearsed. My phone was in my lap. Unlocked. Recording again. The old recording was already pulled up again. My mother's cardigan sleeve covered the screen. The lawyer continued. Your mother intended the property to be managed by the family trust. My uncle exhaled through his nose. Not loud. Enough. The neighbor looked at me. The elder did not move. My cousin closed his eyes for half a second. He knew. Maybe not everything, but he knew enough to be ashamed near the carpet. The lawyer read another line. Something about appropriate family stewardship, a phrase that did not exist in the blue folder. I felt my mother's old warning rise in my head. Blue, not cream. Do not let them give you the cream one. My thumb found the scar again and pressed. Pain sharpened the room. The lawyer lifted his eyes. Do you understand so far? There it was. The little door they had built for me. The one I was supposed to walk through quietly. Say yes. Nod. Be grateful. Hate confrontation. I looked at my uncle first. He almost smiled. Almost. That almost saved me from feeling sorry for him. I placed my phone in the middle of the table. Not slammed. Not dramatic. Just placed. The sound was small. Plastic against wood. Everyone looked at it. The lawyer stopped breathing like a man who had forgotten his own lungs. I said, "Read the next sentence from the blue folder, or I play the part where you and my uncle planned this." The room changed temperature. I swear it did. Not cold, not hot. Thin, like all the air had been sliced into strips. The neighbor made a sound under her breath. The elder turned her head slowly toward my uncle. My cousin finally looked up from the carpet. The lawyer's hand moved toward my phone. Fast. Too fast. I slid it back with 2 fingers. "No," I said. "One word. Ugly. Beautiful." My uncle laughed. A bad laugh. Dry, short, born dead. "What is this supposed to be?" His voice had gone too high. He heard it too, so he lowered it. "Do not embarrass yourself." There he was. Not the soft funeral uncle, not the family steward, the man from the recording, the one who thought my grief made me weak. I looked at him for a long second. Then I pressed play. First came static, then the printer. That awful coughing printer. The receptionist's faint voice. A chair squeaked. The lawyer's recorded voice filled the room. I will read the trust language first. The real lawyer, sitting in front of us, went gray. Not pale. Gray, like wet ash. On the recording, my uncle said, "You will read it cleanly?" The family elder's hand tightened on the arm of her chair. The neighbor whispered, "Oh, God." The recording kept going. The lawyer said, "If she does not challenge it, we proceed." Then my uncle. Clear. Small. Mean. Familiar. She will not. She hates confrontation. I stopped the recording there. I did not need more. The sentence sat in the room by itself. It did not need help. My uncle stared at the phone like it had betrayed him. That is the thing about people who lie. They are always shocked by evidence. Like truth is rude. Like proof has bad manners. The lawyer adjusted his tie. His gold pen rolled slightly toward the edge of the table and stopped. No one picked it up. "I think," he said, "we should be careful about context." The elder stood. Slowly. Her chair scraped the floor with a sound that made my teeth ache. "Context?" she said. Just one word. But she said it like she had found something rotten in her soup. The neighbor was crying now, silently. Angry crying. The kind where the face barely moves, but the eyes keep shining. My cousin pushed his chair back. "Dad," he said. Not loud, not accusation. Worse, disappointment. My uncle turned on him immediately. "Sit down." My cousin did not sit. The room held its breath around that. Small rebellion. Tiny. But real. The lawyer closed the cream folder. His fingers were clumsy now. The folder that had entered the room as authority suddenly looked cheap. Paper, pretending to be fate. I said, "Open the blue one." He did not move. So I reached into my bag and took out my copy. Black binder. Ugly binder. My beautiful, ugly binder. I opened it to the clause and slid it across the table to the elder first. Not the lawyer, not my uncle, the elder. She put on her glasses and read. The neighbor stood behind her and read over her shoulder. My uncle's face hardened. He was calculating. You could see it. New plan. New angle. New wound to press. He pointed at me. "You recorded private conversations?" I almost laughed. There it was. Not. I did not do it. Not. That is not my voice. Privacy. A thief complaining about the window being open. I looked at the lawyer. "Read the blue folder." He swallowed. The sound was wet. He opened the drawer beside him. For a second, I thought he would pretend it was not there. Then he pulled it out. Blue. Old blue. Soft corners. Coffee stain near the clasp. My mother's handwriting on the tab. House. Final. The neighbor covered her mouth. The elder sat down again. But she did not take off her glasses. The lawyer opened the folder. This time, his voice did not sound like a funeral. It sounded like a man walking barefoot across broken glass. Regarding the residential property, he read, "I leave full ownership to my daughter." Full ownership. Not managed, not family trust, not stewardship. Mine. The word did not feel happy at first. It felt heavy, like someone had placed a stone in my hands and said, "This is yours. Carry it." My uncle leaned forward. "There are reasons." The elder cut him off. "No." That was all. No. The word landed flat and final. He looked around the table for someone soft. My cousin looked away. The neighbor looked straight at him. The lawyer stared down at the page. No one rescued him. That was the first thing he lost. Not the house. The room. He lost the room. And men like him need rooms more than they need money. The reading did not become loud. That would have been easier. Nobody screamed. Nobody threw anything. The fallout came in small humiliations. The blue folder stayed open. The cream folder stayed closed. The lawyer stopped using phrases like intentions and family management. He read what was written because now every syllable had witnesses. My uncle's name appeared only where my mother had left him, a small item from the house. Not property, not control, not keys. A box. One box of personal keepsakes he could collect by appointment. By appointment. The elder made him repeat that part. "By appointment," she said, looking at him over her glasses. My cousin rubbed both hands over his face. The neighbor wrote something down in a little notebook from her handbag. I had not asked her to. That made me want to cry more than anything. The lawyer's hands shook when he gathered the papers. My uncle stood too fast. His chair bumped the wall. He looked at me then. Really looked. No softness. No pretending. "You think this makes you strong," he said. There it was. The last little knife. I felt it go in. Not deep. Not anymore. I picked up my phone and put it in my bag. "No," I said. "I think it makes me the person you miscalculated." He flinched. Tiny. But I saw it. The elder saw it too. Good. Let the record show. He did not get the keys. That sounds simple, but it looked like this. It looked like him standing in the office doorway with his umbrella in one hand and nothing in the other. It looked like the lawyer avoiding his eyes. It looked like my cousin walking out behind him, but not beside him. It looked like the neighbor touching my elbow in the hallway and saying, "Your mother would have wanted the spoon put back." Not, "I am sorry." Not, "Are you okay?" The spoon. Because she understood what had been stolen first. When we reached the parking lot, my uncle turned once more. Rain had finally found him. His shoulders were dark with it. "You will regret humiliating me," he said. The elder stepped between us before I could answer. Not dramatically. She just moved. A wall in polished shoes. "You humiliated yourself," she said. Then she opened her umbrella and walked to her car. That was the second thing he lost, the family elder. After that, phone calls started going unanswered. Not mine. His. I heard it later from my cousin, in a text so stiff It probably took him 20 minutes to write. He said people were asking questions. He said the elder had told 2 relatives that the will was read correctly only after I played a recording. He said my uncle was angry. He said the house keys should be returned. Should be. That word made me laugh. The keys came back in a padded envelope. No note, just keys. 3 of them. Front door, back door, pantry lock. He had labeled the pantry key. Pantry. Like he had owned even that. I held it in my palm until the teeth of the key left marks in my skin. The lawyer sent a formal email later. Dry language. Corrected reading. Acknowledgement of the blue folder. No apology. Of course not. Men like that do not apologize when they are caught. They adjust the paperwork. But the email existed. The corrected reading existed. The witnesses existed. The recording existed. The blue folder existed. And my uncle no longer had a private version of the truth to hide inside. That was enough. Not sweet. Enough. That night, I went back to the house alone. Still raining. Still cold. The kind of cold that gets into door frames. I stood on the porch for a while before unlocking it. I do not know why. Maybe because once I opened the door, the fight would be over, and I was not sure who I would be without it. The key turned badly. The lock had always stuck in wet weather. My mother used to lift the handle slightly while turning. I forgot. Tried again. Remembered. Lifted. Turned. The door opened. The house smelled wrong at first. Lemon cleaner still. Closed rooms. Old flowers. But underneath, faint and stubborn. Cardamom. Maybe memory has a smell even after people scrub. I walked straight to the pantry. The yellow tile looked darker in the rain light. The tea tins were still wrong. Moved to the upper shelf. Sewing needles where coins should be. Receipts missing. Everything arranged by someone who did not understand the system. I put the blue folder on the pantry shelf. Not hidden now. Visible. Spine out. House. Final. My mother's handwriting facing the room. Then I started putting things back. Not perfectly. I did not know every place. That hurt. There are little maps mothers keep in their heads and never think to leave behind. Where the extra matches go. Which tin has the good needles? Which cup has the crack but still holds tea? I found the spoon in a drawer near the stove. Wrong drawer. I washed it even though it looked clean, especially because it looked clean. Then I noticed the loose panel near the bottom shelf. Not the floorboard where I had hidden the documents. A side panel. I pulled it with my fingernail. It gave. Behind it was one tea tin. Small. Dented. Missed. My uncle had missed it. I sat down on the pantry floor with my mother's cardigan around me and opened the tin. Needles. Coins. 2 dead batteries. A receipt so old the ink had faded into ghost marks. And at the bottom, curled like a tiny surviving animal, another blue rubber band. I laughed once, sharp. Then I covered my mouth because it almost became a sob. Not because the rubber band mattered. Because it had survived him. Because my mother's useless things had outlasted his plan. Because everything looks useless until the day you need it. I made tea. Too strong, of course. I burned it a little because I let it boil too long. The pantry filled with cardamom steam. The window fogged. I poured 1 cup. Just 1. Then I tapped the spoon on the rim. Tap, tap. The sound was smaller than I remembered. Or maybe the house was bigger without her in it. The house was not healed. Neither was I. Do not let anyone sell you that kind of ending. I did not expose my uncle and suddenly become light. I did not play the recording and feel clean. It felt like surgery without anesthesia. Necessary. Brutal. Oh, still a wound. But the wound was mine now, not something he could use as a door. I locked the front door, checked the back, checked the pantry. Then I stood barefoot on the cracked yellow tile and let myself feel it. Mine to grieve in, mine to clean badly, mine to leave messy, mine to fill with cardamom again, mine to lock, mine to keep. And the next time someone says I hate confrontation, I hope they understand what that really means. I do hate it. I hate the shaking before it. I hate the way rooms look at you when you break the polite lie. I hate the taste of it. Metal and old coffee and rainwater. But hating something does not mean you cannot do it. It means when you finally do, you do it with both hands. So tell me this. If your own family tried to steal the last thing your mother left you, and you had the proof sitting in your pocket, would you let them save face? Or would you put the phone on the table and make every single person hear what they thought they could hide?